What's up everybody, this is Mastery Gamer. We just got the Overwatch 2 What's Next panel at BlizzCon 2023, outlining new content that'll be coming to the game over the course of the next year, including multiple new heroes who will be releasing after Mauga, some of which even got gameplay footage and abilities showcased, multiple new game modes for both the core quick play and competitive system, as well as other new spin-off game modes, more details on upcoming season themes, as well as changes to the Battle Pass system, a small mention of PvE, and of course, many details outlining the upcoming changes to competitive. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. First and foremost, starting off with the new heroes. Now, first off, the new hero Mauga was officially revealed during the opening ceremony yesterday, and he promptly then was added to the game itself for a limited time trial where players are able to play him in the game itself for just this weekend before he's properly added in Season 8. I won't go too much more in depth about Mauga specifically here in this video since there's already been quite a bit of coverage of him, and I even did a many hour long stream yesterday showing off gameplay of the heroes. So if you want, go ahead and feel free to check out that VOD, but now let's talk a little bit about the next heroes, the ones coming after Mauga. Blizzard announced during the What's Next panel that there will be 3 heroes launching over the course of 2024, a damage hero named Venture, a support hero who currently has the placeholder name of Space Ranger, and an unspecified tank hero who got very little details mentioned about them other than this little temporary placeholder portrait we can see here. I'll be talking about that a bit more in just a moment, but first let's talk about the hero who got the most focus during this presentation, which is the next upcoming hero who will be releasing in Season 10, named Venture. Venture is described as a swashbuckling archaeologist who does hail from Canada, and their abilities consist of a drill, which allows them to drill underneath the terrain of the map before popping up and shooting with a projectile-based explosive weapon. Yes, this seems like a rather crazy kit for a character. It was clarified that the hero is in fact invulnerable while tunneling underground like this, and that when they pop up from under the ground, they do damage and get a bit of aerial momentum, thus presumably letting them get up to higher ledges. And also they have a dash ability which can be used either above or underground, which seems to just sort of quickly move them forward. The weapon, as I mentioned, is a projectile that fires out a set distance before exploding, seemingly very similar to Sigma's hyperspheres in a sense, but this is a damage hero, so they're likely going to have higher damage numbers than what we see with Sigma, and overall be more, well, damage focused. Admittedly, this is a rather curious character, one which looks to have a pretty fun mobility just with that underground tunneling mechanic. We don't know very much just yet about the extent of this ability. We don't know if it can be used to tunnel, say, up a wall vertically, or if you can drop down through the floor of a map from like a higher area to a lower room. There's a lot we don't know, but we are going to be learning more about Venture as we get closer to their release in Season 10. And also a bit of trivia that's worth noting is that while it was clarified they're a swashbuckling archaeologist, we can actually see from their patch on the shoulder here that they appear to be part of the same archaeology group who's present on maps such as Petra, and is thus part of an existing faction that has actually existed within the Overwatch universe for quite a long time at this point. So it's cool to see this faction finally getting represented with an actual hero being added to the game, and I for one am quite excited to learn more about Venture and eventually get to play them. The next hero Blizzard talked about though during this panel is Space Ranger, a female hero from the Mars colony, which is a completely brand new thing we've never heard mentioned before in the Overwatch universe. But yes, apparently there is a Mars colony in the Overwatch universe. Okay, well, not much more to say about that, I suppose. This hero though is a support, as I said, and will be releasing in Season 12, and apparently is still in a position of being very iterative with her abilities and mechanics. In the concept art they showed off here, it's noted that she has a burst fire smart SMG, but then as the developers were talking about it, they acknowledged that this weapon actually isn't part of her kit anymore in terms of what they're testing internally. They didn't clarify what her primary weapon is at this point, just that it isn't what was shown in the concept art here. But we do also see she has these little over-the-shoulder sort of like drone type thingies that sort of appear to be attached to her back through little arms. We didn't get any insight into what those do, but we do know that apparently when it comes to her mechanics, she's going to have a lot of vertical mobility, and seems like a character who might even have some sort of aerial-based mechanics similar to Pharah. Again, we didn't get nearly as much information about this character as we did Venture. We didn't get any gameplay footage of her, and we only got these concept renders here. But again, they will be releasing in Season 12. And given how much of what they showed off about her was confirmed to be placeholder, it could end up changing quite a bit. The character's overall design could end up changing quite a bit prior to release, as could her abilities and mechanics. So we'll just have to wait and see as we get closer to the middle of next year when we're expecting her to release. The final hero they talked about, though, didn't really get much focus. Basically, all they said was that it's a tank hero who will be coming in Season 14, and that's it. In the gameplay footage from Venture, we actually saw temporary placeholder images of the other heroes that they talked about. So we can see Venture's player icon here, along with Space Ranger and the unspecified tank. The image we see here is actually kind of interesting. At first glance, it looks to me like a almost Junker-esque character, given that he appears to have some sort of like monster truck-sized rip tire on his back with the little spikes coming out of it. That might be something entirely different though, probably, because I doubt they would just give a new tank hero Junkrat's rip tire, but bigger. So it's hard to say what exactly it is, but they do appear to have some sort of big spiked component on their back, and the character themselves looks sort of hunched forward with a weird little green afro type hair thing. I don't know, keep in mind, these are highly stylized placeholder player icons we're seeing here, and as we can see with the Venture and Space Ranger icons that were also shown off on the screen, they don't even necessarily accurately represent the overall visual design of the character, so we'll just have to wait and see. That's all the information we have on the Season 14 tank hero, but we do know now that officially after Mauga, the next new heroes to be released will be Venture as a damage hero, Space Ranger as a support hero, and the unspecified tank as a tank hero. Moving on from heroes though, next up let's talk about game modes. They announced a few new game modes actually, some of which got a bit more focus than others, and first of these game modes is the brand new core PvP mode, Clash. This is going to be a new mode that'll be coming to quick play and competitive next year, and in a lot of ways is sort of a control point tug of war, which they described as essentially being 5 CP. Now, the way this works, as demonstrated from this diagram here, is that there are 5 control points laid out in a line, with each team starting with possession of 2, and the center point being neutral, and then both teams end up fighting over that central point, with whoever wins that point then pushing the enemy team back a point. So in a way, it's kind of like the push game mode in that it seems to be entirely symmetrical, and that the two teams are basically going back and forth as they capture points to eventually try capturing all 5 points, including the 2 the enemy team originally started with. Although presumably there will be other ways to win as time expires. If you've only maybe captured 3 out of the 5 points, then you have more than the enemy. The devs didn't actually specify too clearly about the win conditions for this mode and the different sort of cases that could come about with a mode like this, but I think the basic understanding is that it is going to function rather similar to push with the whole back and forth tug of war type mechanic, and they did even show off one of the new maps that'll be featured in this mode, which is Hanaoka, another map set in Japan immediately next to the old 2CP Hanamura map. The other major game mode they talked about though is a brand new Hero Mastery spin-off mode called Hero Mastery Gauntlet. Now, based off of the gameplay footage they showed here and how they described it, this is a first-person co-op PvE tower defense mode featuring the sort of art kit and mechanics and stuff from Hero Mastery. So it doesn't have fully detailed, fleshed out maps. Everything looks like the digital VR space, basically, in terms of the design of the map itself. And the enemies you face off against are basically just training bots that have the different abilities we've already seen in Hero Mastery. But this will be a 3-player co-op mode where players have to defend these giant towers from oncoming waves of bots. They even mention that there are special unique mechanics as a part of this mode, such as calling in airstrikes to take out large numbers of enemy bots. And of course, the heroes are all going to be trying to work together to protect the towers, with the heroes available for selection within this mode evidently rotating on a season-by-season basis. So in the gameplay footage here, we see Reinhardt, Kiriko, and Pharah being played, but it seems like other heroes will be available from one season to the next. Now, unfortunately, they didn't really go much more in depth with this as a mode. They didn't really talk much more about the extent of the details of it, or much more about it beyond the fact that it will be coming sometime next year and it will have its own leaderboard leaderboard system, but honestly, I think this is a really exciting new mode to see them adding, and I'm kind of surprised they relegated it to just a sort of Hero Mastery spin-off type mode. This almost seems like it could have been its own standalone PvE type experience, but maybe Blizzard will just start small with it, and over time, if enough people enjoy this mode, it'll grow and become its own separate thing. I personally think that would be really cool, because I think this looks like an awesome mode to be getting, but we'll just have to wait and see what else Blizzard has in store for this. Also, speaking of Hero Mastery, it was announced that there will be new changes coming to Hero Mastery in the near future, including courses now for Lucio, Genji, Echo, Mei, and Diva, thus adding 5 more heroes to it, along with other little changes to leaderboards and replays and such. Nothing terribly exciting here on this front, but it is nice to hear that there are more heroes being added to it for those of you who do enjoy the Hero Mastery mode. Next up though, we have changes to competitive. This was a surprisingly long and in-depth portion of the What's Next panel, where they talked about the new competitive system that'll be coming in early 2024. Some of the major changes coming with this new competitive system is that your rank will now update after every match as opposed to every 5, with a new rank progression screen which shows much more detail about how you're actually progressing from one rank to the next. It'll give you a specific breakdown of how far you moved up or down after any given match, including factors such as winning or losing streaks and advantages, which influence how much you go up or down. Additionally, there will be a brand new rank added to the system above Grandmaster, which is supposedly going to be called Ultimate, and they're also going to start adding new weapon skins beyond just the gold weapons that have been in Overwatch since the very early days of Overwatch 1, with the first next set of special competitive point weapons being Emerald. We can see them have this green color to them, a interesting choice. After gold, they didn't go with like platinum or silver or something like that. They went with Emerald, but evidently there's going to be a new wave of new colored weapons added roughly every year from what they talked about, so that players will always have something new being added that they can work towards by playing competitive. Additionally, they went on to mention that this new competitive system specifically will be coming in Season 9, and with this new system, there will be a rank reset as well as the return of placement matches. Bringing back placement matches is evidently a fundamental part of this new competitive system they're going with. So in a lot of ways, it seems like they are going back to the old competitive system of Overwatch 1, but with a lot of new specific details, such as the rank progression screen, which gives you far more in-depth detail about how you're actually moving, and of course, other components as well. Now, speaking of seasons and thus the Battle Pass, they didn't talk too much about Battle Passes specifically here, but they did mention that there will be a redesign to the Battle Pass system coming sometime next year, with the goal of offering more player agency, specifically when it comes to mythic skins. And specifically what they sort of suggested this to mean is that as you progress through future Battle Passes, you'll have the option of unlocking past mythic skins, such as Cyber Demon Genji or Zeus Junker Queen from older seasons, as you progress through future season Battle Passes. Now, they didn't really specify whether it'd be you still only get one mythic skin per season, but have the option of getting older ones instead of the new one, or how exactly that's going to end up working. Just that some of the Battle Pass changes we can expect next year will focus on allowing newer players to earn older mythic skins. Some additional details that were mentioned as well in the opening ceremony regarding new seasons, but wasn't really expanded upon at all in the What's Next panel, is that next year we can apparently expect themes for Battle Passes to include Egyptian mythology, witches, eldritch horror, and a mirror universe where heroes become villains and villains become heroes. So these are rather interesting themes, and I'm actually kind of curious to see if this Egyptian mythology theme happens to coincide with the release of Venture as a hero, given that we know Venture is a swashbuckling archaeologist, and archaeology and ancient Egypt kind of go hand in hand. I would not be surprised if those two happen to be the same season, being season 10. But of course, that is just speculation, so we will just have to wait and see on that front. But additionally, Blizzard, believe it or not, did mention PvE during this panel. Very briefly, it was perhaps the smallest segment out of the entire panel, and all they said is that more PvE will be coming in 2024, and that at the very least, it'll include PvE-based events. They didn't really clarify what this meant or to what extent PvE events are going to be a thing in future seasons. My guess is they're referring more specifically to things things like the recent Trials of Sanctuary game mode we got, as opposed to full-on story-based PvE missions, but they did mention that they know fans are excited for more story going forward, but didn't specify if the new PvE going forward was going to be story-based. So kind of have to wait and see. I'd say we probably aren't going to be seeing any major developments in the PvE department for a long time at this point, just based off of how little they said about it during this panel. But again, we will have to wait and see, and it is something which I do plan to talk more in depth specifically about in a follow-up video at some point, given that I know it's still a really big topic for a lot of people who really liked the PvE we got back in Season 6. One final little tidbit that I do want to mention here before I wrap up this video though is that we did get images of an unofficially announced Peru map that'll presumably be coming sometime next year. All we got of it was the images we saw on screen in the background here, with Overwatch 2 game director Aaron Keller mentioning that it was in fact set in Peru, but we don't know when this map will be releasing. We don't even know what game mode it's going to be for, but presumably it is going to have some ties to Ilari, given that she is also from Peru as well. And that sums up all the major details we got during the Overwatch 2 What's Next panel, as well as the course of BlizzCon in its entirety. Overall, there wasn't a ton actually really talked about when it comes to Overwatch. It basically had two panels, one dedicated to what we can expect next year in terms of content, the other dedicated to Mauga, and then of course the opening ceremony where they announced a lot of the stuff. But it is nice to see so much content seemingly being in the works when it comes to next year, and it looks like Overwatch is going to have a pretty content-heavy future going forward. We will, of course, have to see how good this content ends up being once we actually end up getting it, but Blizzard did seem to want to emphasize just how much was coming in the near future. And on that note, let me know your thoughts about everything revealed at BlizzCon 2023 when it comes to Overwatch 2 by dropping a comment down below. Are you excited to see more of these future heroes after Mauga? Or maybe you're more excited about the new game mode or competitive changes. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, be sure to subscribe, hit up that bell icon, come follow me on X, and join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch 2 news, streams, and content. And special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible. If you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.